We are Odd School Studios. The thoughts, the process, the work. This is our inner world.
Kind of like the start of the end of the great ant colonies of the desert. And what this page really kind of like evokes is how there are all these different separate colonies, and they're all kind of like bringing different things that they have, different values that they have set aside, values they kind of think other colonies be practicing, but they're all kind of different. And they're at this point where they're all so different in their own individual colonies that they're not really aware of like what's going on as a whole. And we kind of like use this scene as the ending. They're so unaware something's coming and it's going to end it. But I'll kind of let you, Greg, talk more about the different colonies and the flags that you so beautifully designed for each of the colonies and why you kind of like made those stylistic decisions when drawing them.
In this page, we have five of our colonies that have made it to sort of this big meeting. And our first colony over here on the left that we see is the Alnahia colony, and they a lot of sort of the feeling I was trying to evoke for their colony was one of decadence. They're your people who maybe aren't as wealthy as they want to seem, and so I think all of their sort of stylistic choices there and everything that went into their flag even is like they want to convey that they have abundance. They want everyone to know that they're the rich ones, even if they aren't. It's all about positioning. It's all about that. And so, even within their flag design, over there on the far left, I was like using diamond shapes, these sort of this like chalice kind of shape that was overflowing, like literally trying to evoke the symbolism of a cup running over, sort of that turn of phrase of trying to say you have a lot or have even more than you even need. And then just even with their clothing, trying to evoke, they have maybe more ornate clothing, they wear more rings, all that kind of stuff. Then to the right of that, we have the Amar colony. They are our main colony, the one that this meeting is going on in, where our main characters begin their journey. They use the symbolism of the sun, which you'll see all throughout the colony design. It just being sort of this, they see themselves as this beacon of light, beacon of hope. They are, you know, this bright spot in maybe a dark desert. And then to the next one over, our third colony, is the Tala. And you even see with their colony, it is their flag itself is falling apart. It's faded. It's ripped. They are struggling. Their clothes are not really dressed up, like they're ripped. They are, they're literally just there for the food. I think actually in our dialogue boxes, once we add those, I think they literally say we're just here, we just came for some food, because they're starving, they're struggling. And then our final colony over there on the far right is the Noring, the Narrow. And the Narrow is, they come from a much more harsh environment, I guess. And so that was a lot of what I was trying to evoke there. These kind of sharper shapes. Their clothing is more minimalistic, more utilitarian. And then their flag is conveying strength, is conveying a colony that can really face just about anything, or at least they want to convey that. So I was very thankful, I think, to have a lot of this description, thankfully, from Jacob. So, and you can maybe speak more to, because I know you came up with, even beyond this, essentially a whole map.
Yeah.
And so maybe speak into that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, there are a total of 12 colonies. And at this point of the story, not all 12 colonies have even survived. I don't really want to talk about that because I don't want to give away too much of the overall story of like where these ants are going to carry. But we chose these four specific colonies because in a lot of ways, it started echoing things that we're like seeing within culture and the ways that we
Hmm.
divide ourselves and separate ourselves. Like there are those who kind of like dress and flaunt and like they're in their own silo and they kind of like look down on others. There's others who are just like kind of like structurally like living that like suburbial perfect life, which I think is Amar. They're kind of going about just like every day, structurally the same, but like that is how they've done it forever and that's how you continue to do it. And it's like quote unquote like the happy life. And then you have colonies that are just like barely trying to survive, but yet like no one else is like able to see that, or they're like unable to ask for help. It's almost like a point of pride that they're like still trying to convey like this sense of like, hey, we have it together, even though they really don't. And then the narrows, they're kind of just like, we're better than everybody else. We're just here because we think like this is how society does it, but like we haven't figured out. But like what all these ants don't is they don't have it figured out, because kind of like the overarching theme of this whole story is what it means to come together as like one body. And I think we're taking a lot of reference and inspiration from the Bible and like what it means to be individual parts, but as stronger as one body. And like a lot of what we see, kind of like what Greg and I have talked a lot about in creation of the story, is there are so many different denominations within America. And we all kind of like, yeah, like some definitely like veer too far or veer too far this way. But as a whole, we're all like on the same mission, but yet we kind of like don't talk to each other. We don't react. And then like honestly, like it starts creating all these different fissions within the church and weakens the whole church. And this is like kind of just our subtle nod structurally of like, hey, like these colonies are all once great. Like they were all more connected. But now they're at this point where it's like let little different ideologies like step away and like step into them. And now they're kind of like all falling away from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that as, as human beings, I think we can all relate to, whether or not you're somebody who grew up in the church, is currently in the church, or has never stepped foot in church. It still is one of those universal experiences of dealing with people, or even being a person yourself who gets entrenched in a certain ideology that maybe had a good intention, but you get so entrenched that you're unwilling to maybe see how it could be hurting people, um or how maybe like we could be loving others better. And I think even just in terms of, I think I think sort of how you wrote Daffer, I think was really nice, because you even see just like in the way he sort of is all of us at one point or another, where you're sort of start looking at, it's like you're put in this role, you're put in this position, and you start to question it, maybe to the point of it being not helpful anymore, where you start to question it to the point of like you're just being contrarian for the sake of being contrarian.
Yeah.
um which, I think is a really helpful thing, because I think in this day and age, we it's helpful to critique things, but it's also we live in a culture of the internet that people love to hear themselves, um people love to hear themselves talk, and
Yeah.
they love to have a unique perspective. And so everyone wants to sort of be a contrarian, but it just like it's a hard balance to walk of like what is too much? Like how much critique is too much, and how much is it as just screaming into the void because we want to, we want to seem different, or we want to, or even if we want to go along and seem like we're more, hip, or I,
Yeah. I think the cool, really like one of the cooler things of what is happening on this page is, even though Greg, you like went through all of that really fine detail of how these ants look different, but at the
yeah.
end of the day, they all kind of look very similar. And I think that
Hmm.
kind of like speaks into the beauty of it too, because they all are coming from like the same colony structure relatively. And whether they see it or they don't, like they're as close to their brethren as they think they are different. But like, yet they're unable to see that. And we're going to kind of force them into a situation. And it's like why we created the desert fields and why is all these things like without this body that they're currently all critiquing and fighting against each other and like, you're wrong, you're wrong. Without that, they're about to all like realize how hard it is to survive in the fields. And it's kind of
Hmm.
be like the pushing thing of this whole story is like, hey, we are all gonna die. We're all about to like the desert ants are about to be wiped off the map. We need to come together and like kind of reform that like ant colony again and kind of put that structure and lean into the idea that like, yeah, we are all individuals, but yet we're still one body. And that's like a beautiful thing. like Greg's a writer, I'm an artist, but together
Mhm.
we come together to make this story and tell visual stories, hopefully for that fifth to sixth, maybe older demographic. But we have different skill sets and we're kind of like utilizing that and leaning on each other. Because like when I see this page, I'm like, oh, I wrote these colonies, but Greg kind of like visually brought them to life in a way that I could have never even thought of in a million years. And it's like that idea, like even the way we like construct this and work on this together is kind of like emphasizing like, no, we're stronger as like one body. And we really need to like sometimes, like obviously, like sometimes you need to like question and push back on how things are structurally formed, or like when people are like have new ideas that they're bringing into the fold. Because like yeah, not all ideas are great. We don't always have to like be like that idea is great. Come on, we're all one body. But at the same time, it's like we are all kind of like on the same mission here.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, just really hoping, I guess, to help people see that at the end of the day, we don't need to get hung up on the little minutia. Um, and even within, and maybe even especially within the church, of we're all brothers and sisters, and we all are seeking to show the love of Christ to others. And I think um, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And if we're all trying to do that, who cares? If you believe tiny differences within from one thing to another, as long as you're all seeking to follow the gospel.
Yeah, and like holding that as true. And I think if you are into those ideas and constructionally, like you want stories that like dig into like deeper theological questions, like what it means to belong versus not belong, what it means to be one body, or maybe you're someone that like really loves Lord of the Rings and loves Dune, then this is a story that you need to follow and you need to subscribe for more.
Yeah, thank you guys for following along.